is 6,
Okay.
sunset to 6, so it's exactly 12 hours. Yeah. So it says you should stop burning chametz by 11 o'clock. That's the end of the time. It doesn't mean that afterwards you can't burn. It means you want to finish burning then, because after the burning, we also nullify the chametz. We do bittul. And once it's 11 o'clock, we can't nullify the chametz anymore. Why? Why can't we nullify the chametz by 11 o'clock? Why? Because, is that the question? Once it comes to 11, again, it's a hypothetical clock, right? Keep that in mind. 11 o'clock is not 11 o'clock. Once it comes to 11 o'clock, we can't do bittul. We can't do the declaration of nullifying chametz that you didn't see, you didn't find, you nullifying. You can't do that anymore. Why?
Because you're not supposed to have it?
Because from that time you cannot benefit from chametz. Rabbinically, from 11 o'clock you can't benefit anymore. So if you can't benefit, that means it's not really yours. In terms of, it's only yours in terms of being punished for it, because obviously the Torah says you can't have chametz in your possession, you can't benefit. So in terms of that, it's considered yours. But in terms of like power, authority, you have no authority over the chametz, because if you can't benefit, that means it's not really yours. You get it? If you can't benefit from something, so what makes something yours if you can't use it? The idea of something being yours means that it's yours, you can use it. If something is yours, it's yours, but you can't use it. Let's say I give you a gift, it's 100% yours, but you have no permission to use it. You can't do anything with it, but it's yours. Doesn't make any sense. So being that you can't benefit, that means you also don't have the power to nullify it. You don't have the power to declare it ownerless. You don't have the power more. That's why if someone did not burn his chametz, let's say someone forgot to burn his chametz, and it's already 11 o'clock, so of course he can still burn it. But he cannot, let's say he wants to sell it to a guy, it's too late to sell. Let's say you don't want to sell, you just want to throw it into the street and say, it's hefka, it's ownerless. When it's 11 o'clock, you can't do that anymore. Because it's not yours to make it declared ownerless. It's only yours for the sake of being punished. For that, it's yours. Because obviously the Torah says you can't have in your possessions. Obviously, this can be considered yours for that. But in terms of having power and authority over the chametz, that you don't have. The only thing you can do is you can burn it. That's why it's a big issue. People forget to sell the chametz, and you realize when it's too late, it's a major problem. They have to burn it. They can't sell it. It'd be a big loss. Very important to sell chametz in advance. Okay, so we continue now with what happens if a person forgets, if a person finds chametz on Yom Tov. What happens if you find chametz on Yom Tov? So you're supposed to burn it. If it's Yom Tov, if it's now, okay, let's back up. If someone finds chametz on Pesach, you have to burn it, obviously. But if it's on Yom Tov, as opposed to Chol Hamoed, right, there's 8 days of Pesach, and then there is Yom Tov and there's Chol Hamoed. Yom Tov, Shabbos, Chol Hamoed. If it's Yom Tov or Shabbos, Chol Hamoed, then you can't burn it. With Shabbos, of course, you can't burn chametz. And Yom Tov, you also not allowed to burn chametz, because you can only do things for the sake of cooking, for food. You can't do a malacha that has nothing to do with food. So you can't burn the chametz on Yom Tov. So what do? So you're going to say, well, if I can't burn it, maybe I could flush it down the toilet. That's also considered destroying. Maybe I should do that. This is the problem. Not the problem. This is the issue. The issue is Chachamim come along and say that this chametz is muktzah. They have that power. The Torah gives them that power, even though it's going to stop you from, you won't be able to destroy the chametz, but that's the power the Chacham have. And chametz is muktzah. They enacted muktzah. What is the definition for muktzah, as we discussed? Anything that's not functional, something that has no use on Shabbos and Yom Tov becomes muktzah. Chametz you can't eat, you can't benefit, so it's muktzah. See, Chacham don't let you burn it. Don't let you destroy it. So therefore, because you can't destroy it, you don't transgress family chametz in your possession, because now it's like a oinus, it's like against your will. You transgress if you find out after Pesach there was chametz in your possession. You transgress family chametz in your possession. Well, if you did your best before Pesach, you don't transgress. It's not your fault. I did my best. So now you find chametz, you're supposed to burn it. You can't have chametz in your possession. It's not my fault. I can't. Chacham don't let me burn it. So now I don't transgress because I'm an oinus. It's against my will. I can't. I'm not allowed to burn it. So you don't transgress. The only thing you have to do is to cover it, so you don't come to eat from it. And then after Yom Tov, yeah, so you don't. It's a decree. You don't come to eat from it, even though you're laughing because why would you eat an old piece of cookie? Yeah, there's nothing to it. Chum made a decree that it has to be covered, so you don't come to eat from it. And then after Yom Tov, you burn it. Now, when you burn chametz on Pesach, if it says if you find a kazayis, which is about, let's say, 15 grams, you're supposed to burn it with a bracha. The same bracha that is said when you search for the chametz, the night of the 14th. So if you find the kazayis of chametz, you're supposed to burn it. However, there's a catch. Yeah, but the catch is that many people sell their chametz before Pesach. And if they sell their chametz before Pesach, there are opinions that say that even the chametz that you didn't have in mind, but it's stuck somewhere randomly, and you find a piece of chametz, some say that's also included in the sale, because in the sale you're really including all chametz that you may have. But it's not clear if it's really in the sale, because officially you're only selling the chametz that is in designated areas. So it's not a definite thing that chametz is included in the sale. But it could be it is included in the sale. So therefore, it is best not to say a bracha. Some Rabbanim will say you should say a bracha, because some Rabbanim hold it's not included in the sale. Some say it is, some say it could be. So better is to burn without a bracha if you are selling the chametz before Pesach. Is that clear?
Okay.
Now,
So if you sold it, then no bracha.
in other words, it's questionable. If you're selling, in other words, if you're selling, what do you mean? You're selling designated areas, right? There's people selling the whole house, they're not there, so everything's in the sale. But if you're home and you're selling the cabinets that have chametz, that's what we're discussing. Now, for those that say that even though officially you're only selling the designated areas, the closets where the chametz is, but some opinions say that it also includes any chametz that might be stuck anyway. So it could be it's included in the sale. If that's the case, then you don't even transgress. But of course, you don't take chances. You find the chametz, you burn it. It's not a clear thing it's included in the sale. But to say a bracha for the burning, that we refrain. Got it? If someone did not search for chametz before Pesach and he realizes on Pesach, oh, I didn't do b'dikas chametz. He's supposed to b'dikas chametz on Pesach. Not on Yom Tov, not on Shabbos, because he can't use a candle. Yom Tov, he would search if he has a candle burning. I'm not sure if he lights a candle, lights a candle for it. But anyways, it's not a practical thing. But 1 second. If he finds, if he has a candle available, he would search for chametz. Shabbos you can't, because you can't use fire. But you search for chametz, and 1 second. Right, and then if you find the chametz on Yom Tov again, you cover it. It's muktzah, but you're supposed to search on Pesach with a bracha if you didn't search it.
But you don't put the 10 pieces. You don't.
Definitely not. Please don't. Please don't do that. Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, no, sorry, didn't.
You go to another's house and you business in their house.
Now, even if you find chametz after Pesach, you have to burn it. That means you realize after Pesach that you had chametz in possession the entire Pesach. Now it's over. Pesach is over already. What do you want now? Well, you had chametz, so you have to burn it. Why have to burn it? Because the Chacham said that if you have chametz in your possession during Pesach, then after Pesach you're not allowed to benefit from it. Now on Pesach you're not allowed to benefit. The Torah says you can't benefit. But Chacham tell you even after Pesach you also can't benefit from chametz that was in your possession during Pesach. Chacham were concerned that people might take advantage. People might keep chametz in the possession during Pesach. And after Pesach, they'll say, yeah, we just got it after Pesach, No, sorry. People are going to say, they're going to sell the chametz because they don't want to have a loss. They can keep it in the house during Pesach. After Pesach, they're going to use it, sell it, do business. Someone's going to tell them, you have to chametz in possession during Pesach. They're going to say, listen, it wasn't intentional. It was an onus. I didn't realize. I thought I checked, and then I realized that now if you're honest, if it's not your fault, right? You did your best, and there was chametz left in your apartment during Pesach, you don't transgress. So people might say that. So Chum said, even if it was an onus, okay, yeah, it wasn't your fault. You did your best. After Pesach, you cannot benefit from any chametz that was in your possession during Pesach. So that's why it says, even if someone did not search for chametz during Pesach, it says they should search after Pesach without a bracha, because any chametz that was in the apartment, you can't benefit. So you have to search and get rid of it because you can't benefit from it. So you're searching not for the mitzvah of not having chametz in your possession, but so you shouldn't come to benefit from it. Okay, this clear. I think I may be saying a little too fast. I need some time for someone to write things down, or if something is not clear. Yeah, is this?
If you find it after.
Yeah, it says you should burn it. Now you can ask why burn it, why not flush it? It says you burn it. Really, after Pesach, I don't think there's a difference if you burn it or you flush it. It could be that.
Like if you find it after Pesach, you didn't realize, you have to burn it.
It says you should burn it. It's a good question. Why? It could be it doesn't have to be burned. It could be it has to be thrown away. But the thing is, here's the catch. Whatever, I'm pretty sure it has to be destroyed. Maybe not burned. Anytime Chacham don't want you to benefit from something, how do they make sure you don't benefit from it? Destroy it. So if Pashtas, it has to be destroyed. I think the meaning is that you burn it. Speak about it. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, in the Torah it says, "Ushmartim esamatzos." Ushmartim esamatzos. You should guard the matzos. Meaning guard the matzos. Now we know already that you can't eat chametz on Pesach, and if you can't eat chametz on Pesach, and you're supposed to eat matzah, so of course you're going to make sure when you bake the matzos that the matzos don't become chametz. But the Torah says you should guard the matzos, and the Chacham explained that to mean that you should guard it for the sake of eating matzah on Pesach. For the sake of eating matzah on Pesach, it is a mitzvah to eat matzah on Pesach. That's why you went to the matzah bakery yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, you went. So
The school hasn't.
Yeah.
We went.
So when they bake it, they say l'shem matzahs mitzvah, for the sake of matzahs mitzvah, because you're supposed to be baking it. You're supposed to be baking / guarding from chametz. In the process of kneading it, you make sure it doesn't rise. You're supposed to doing it for the sake of eating matzahs on Pesach. Now, when is the time that? From what time do you have to do this? From what point in the process of making matzah? What do you mean? From the time that you're kneading the dough. When is the time that has potential to become chametz? From the time of kneading of the dough. Now, theoretically, it could become chametz even earlier, but that's officially the time when it has the ability to rise. So, according to the Torah, when it says you should be guarding it from becoming chametz for the sake of eating matzah and Pesach, that means from the time of kneading, because when you knead the dough and it becomes a dough, potentially it could start rising. But till then, the way the wheat is, take wheat and you grind it. Now it's flour. Why do it come chametz? So the simple understanding of guarding it for the sake of matzahs on Pesach and shouldn't come chametz is in the time of kneading. That's halacha. That's the letter of the law. But the better way is the way we do it these days, because the Shulchan Aruch it says that the matzahs that you eat by the storm should be guarded from the time that potentially could become chametz. Potentially, it could become chametz from the time of the harvesting. From when it's in the field, it could already become chametz. Because how does wheat become chametz? Comes to contact with water. From the time that the wheat is already ripe, means it's totally ripe. It doesn't need to be attached to the ground anymore. It's like it's not attached. And if water gets into contact with the wheat, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come chametz like a dough, but potentially could become chametz. So from that time on, we already should be guarding it, especially for the matzahs that we're using for the stone. Yeah.
Slightly confused. So if it's just wheat, right? Haven't been making the flour at all yet. How could it possibly become chametz if chametz is?
Because if it comes to contact with water, and the water sits there for like 18 minutes, potentially it could become chametz. Meaning if you see that it's starting to crack, you're seeing. So what? The wheat?
I don't know anything about it, actually.
Yeah, because usually it's with flour. It's not as likely with once you make a dough, then that's really if you just 18 minutes. It's gonna with wheat. It's not so simple. It's not not necessarily will come chametz. You have to see the wheat what it looks like, but it rains a little bit, then it dried up. So, but potentially it could become chametz. Now, halachically not obligated to be concerned for that because the rule is we don't have to be concerned that maybe there's no end, But the matzahs that are used for the sturm, it says there's an opinion that says it should be guarded from the time that potentially could become chametz. Is that remote possibility? And that's why if you look at them, when you buy matzahs, it says in the box shmura mishas tzira. So if you look at the box, shmura mishas. Oh, it's not. Okay, still working. Shemura, can you read it?
Yep.
Shemura, guarded. Mishas, the mem is the prefix. Mishas, shas means the time, like shah is hour. Mishas from the time. Kitsira means harvest. So that's why matzah is expensive, because a lot of work goes into it. They have to send someone in the field. As soon as it's ripe, it's there. Right, has to they cut it right, they harvest it, and they make sure it doesn't stay in the rain. So in the olden days, when it wasn't always possible, I'm sure many times they would have matzah for Pesach. That they bought wheat somewhere, or they bought flour, and they used the flour. And the flour wasn't washed in time to harvest. Now these days, I believe the flour is already chametz because when it's bleached, it's already washed. It's a different process. But I assume in the old days, they take wheat, they grind it, bags of flour, they buy sacks of flour, and that's it. And they made matzah with it, and they were guarding it they made the dough. Okay, now those people involved have to be Jewish, those who are kneading it, You can't have non-Jews working in a matzah bakery and eating the dough because it has to be done for the sake of the mitzvah. It has to be someone who's obligated in the mitzvah of eating matzah on Pesach. The matzah has to be made from something that can become chametz, because the pasuk says, "Don't eat chametz, eat matzahs for 7 days." Okay, there's no obligation for 7 days. It's not a discussion, but that's the pasuk. The wording is, "Don't eat chametz, eat matzah for 7 days." That teaches us that the matzah has to be made from a grain that can become chametz. So you cannot make matzah from, rice and millet and corn and buckwheat. You're not allowed. Nothing to do with not eating rice on Pesach. According to Torah law, you cannot. Matzah has to be made from something that has potential to become chametz. That's only the 5 grains. Now, wheat is the best. It's not, in other words, the other grains, matzah from spelt and oat, is not on the same level. But people who need to, because of allergies, etc., then there is also oat matzah and spelt matzah. But better, if a person is able to handle regular matzah, the chatchila is supposed to be from wheat. Now, just briefly, so when they bake the matzah, if the dough is left for 18 minutes, it means it's the possibility is, we assume, we don't know for sure, but we assume that it's rising, and therefore you cannot use the dough. That's why in the matzah bakery, every 18 minutes they change everything, they wash everything, right? You ever been in the matzah bakery? They stop the whole process and they wash everything. What do you have stopping? Because what's if dough is stuck on the table? Dough is stuck wherever they're working. Dough could be stuck. Dough stuck on their hands, whatever. So if it stays for 18 minutes, it could rise. So after 18 minutes, they wash everything. Now, even less than 18 minutes, it says that if you feel that the dough became warmer than usual, then it could be an issue. Theoretically, the dough could rise even less than 18 minutes. If you feel that the dough became warmer than usual, so the workers have to be aware of that. I guess it's not usual. You don't have to be concerned halachically for that. The place where they need the dough has to be a cool place. It can't be a warm place. You want it to be, because you don't want the dough, you want it to be very hot in the oven, but very cool. We need 2 opposites. Before it goes to the oven, it has to be cool, because you don't want it to start to rise. You cannot now let it bake in the sun. You can't knead the dough in the sun where the sun is shining on it. You can't knead the dough by a window with the sun shining through. You actually cannot knead, interesting halacha, you can't knead a dough by a window on a cloudy day. If it's a sunny day and it's not by the sun, you could knead the dough. But if it's a cloudy day like today, you cannot knead the dough by the window. Because being that it's cloudy, that means you don't really know how the effect of the sun, where the sun breaks through the clouds, and you don't necessarily pick up what it's doing. So if it's a cloudy day, you actually cannot knead a dough by the window. The matzah is only with water. Why only with water? The reason is because the Torah says, lechem eini, pour bread. Some explain that the reason why it's called pour bread because after you pay for it, it becomes pour. The actual reason why it's called pour bread is because it's very poor taste. It's only water, flour and water. It's supposed to be only flour and water. You can't put anything else inside. That's why we don't put spices, because it gives a taste. Also, some say that the spices might give some warmth into it. It could potentially cause it to rise. It's another reason why we don't put any spices into it. Yeah.
Why is it 18 minutes specifically?
Because that's the timeline where it becomes from 18 minutes, it could start becoming chametz. That's just the way it is. Where is it?
It's in
halacha, yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a machlokes, so it's 18 minutes to 24 minutes to what it is. Now, theoretically, for the matzahs that you're not eating by the Seder, you should be able to put in other ingredients. So, not all the matzahs for the Seder. So, not for the Seder, why can we put in flour, water, and apple juice, kosher Pesach and apple juice? So have some taste. Put the majority of water, so it's going to be amaitzi. Problem is that when water and fruit juice come together, fruit juice, eggs, the same thing. When they come together, the potential for becoming chametz becomes much stronger. So now the process of the chametz is going to go much faster, and even less than 18 minutes, it can become chametz. Unless you need the dough in a very, very fast way, it will become chametz even before 18 minutes. So that's why to mix with the water, fruit juice, eggs, anything, anything that's not water, milk, whatever, yeah, you cannot. Well, what could be issue because you don't make you can't make milk and bread, whatever. But right, so forget about milk. Milk is not a good example. So anything, so if you mix anything other than the water, in other words, with the water, you mix other ingredients, it can make the process of chametz go much faster. The chametz say we don't allow this because the only way it won't become chametz is if you knead the dough really, really fast. And we cannot rely on people that are going to be so fast. Like, in other words, it has to be really, really fast, and you cannot let go of the dough at all, and you really have to bake it, and it's very hard to rely that a person is going to be so fast to do it without any breaks and right away put into the oven. So they say you cannot put in any juice, mix in any juice or eggs or oil with the water. And not only that, we went further and they said that even if it's okay, no, so this is prohibited. Now, the next step is just putting fruit juice. Let's say there's no water, just flour and fruit juice. Okay, no water. Now, flour and fruit juice really should, if there's no water at all, really there should be no problem. That cannot become chametz at all. So initially, that was actually permitted. However, the Chacham said that we don't, the accepted practice is not to do this, and people should not have this type of matzah that's only with fruit juice, no water, though it's impossible, it will never become chametz. But the Chacham said the accepted practice these days is that we do not eat this matzah, we do not eat egg matzah. Now you're going to say, but they sell it in the stores, right? I just want to explain. You're not supposed to eat this because there's a concern that water might get into it. What's if some water does get into it? Now the process is going to become very fast, like I said before. So Chacham said, we're concerned. We don't want you to eat this matzah, even though there's no water, because what if some water does get into it? And if water mixes with juice, eggs, oil, olive oil, then the process of chametz will go so much faster that now there's a real concern of chametz. So therefore, we don't want you to have matzah that's made with any types of juice. Only matzah that's made with water, that's it. Now they sell it in the stores because if it's only with pure juice, no water, we said before, really it's not chametz. It's just that accepted practice is that we don't do it this way. We don't, because just being that water might get into it, Chacham say we have to refrain. But really, if it's pure fruit juice, it's not becoming chametz. Chacham said, if it's for people who need it, let's say children, elderly people, sick people, because it's important for their diet to have this type of food. That is, they're limited with foods, and this is something that can help them in their diet. So therefore, for them, it's okay. So people who need it, in other words, if it's only pure fruit juice without water, being that essentially it's not chametz, it can never become chametz. As long as you leave it, it won't become chametz. So they said this is 100% okay for people who need it. It's important for them, fine. But people who don't need it for Pesach, we should refrain from this.
And same with egg matzah. If somebody
We're talking about egg matzah,
because you said pure fruit juice.
pure fruit juice, pure fruit juice, eggs, oil. It's it's all the same. It's the same idea. It's all the same. Anything other than water, same thing. Is understood? Now, when eating matzah on Pesach, we said the matzah on the nights of the Seder has no salt. There's nothing in it. No salt, no spices, nothing. Could you dip the challah in salt by the Seder? Eating matzah on the nights of the Seder, could you put it with salt? It should have some taste. So, halachically, you could. Really, you could, because the matzah itself has no salt. So, halachically, it's 100% okay, because you're eating matzah. Lechem, it's poor bread. There is no salt in it. So, it's not prohibited if someone, like, they want to put salt, it's not prohibited. However, because of the chib of the love of the mitzvah, because we love the mitzvah so much and we just want the taste the way it is, the accepted practice is that we don't put salt on the matzah when you're eating it at the Seder. The rest of Pesach is fine, but by the Seder, we don't put any salt on it. That's the accepted practice, just plain matzah, just the way it is. Now, sometimes there are situations where a person cannot eat the matzah, elderly people, they can't chew it, it's hard for them. Now, these days, it's not so prevalent, this problem, because, I mean, the problem is there, but the solution is simple because they sell all types of matzahs, they sell very thin matzahs. I guess it could also be that the person just can't chew it. You can't, even if it's thin, you can't. So then, if a person cannot, he won't do the mitzvah otherwise, then he could soak it. He could soak it in water. Now, even people who are careful with gebrachs not to make the matzah wet, then if by a person being careful with not making the matzah wet, he's not going to eat the matzah the night of the Seder because says, it's impossible for me to try. I just can't. I can't handle it. And he's not going to do the mitzvah. Eating matzah is minat Torah. You have to eat matzah. So therefore, in such a situation, of course, it's better that he should soak the matzah in water, not in juice, but in water. Doesn't leave it there for too long. So, because if it leaves it too long, it could become mezainus. Anyways, it's going to become soggy. But if that's, in other words, if the option is, or he soaks it, or he's not eating matzah the night of Pesach. So of course he should soak it. And you should not say, well, I'm always careful with the brachs, so I don't make my matzah wet, so I'm not going to eat matzah. The night of the Seder, the Torah says you have to eat matzah. That's more important than being strict, with the brachs. Now, other things about matzah is that, and this they do in the bakery, but it's still possible that you could find it in your house. But then is sometimes you open a box of matzah and you might find there's a bubble on the matzah. You have to find a bubble. Some of them are very small and it's not really an issue. But you could have sometimes bubble on the matzah. Sometimes you could find that it's folded over. You find that it's folded. Like it's the big ones they break off. In other words, if in the bakery, if they find that it's folded, it's folded over. The matzah baked, but it's very thin. So in the process, it went like this, and it got baked together. Now, matzah is very thin, so halachically it really bakes it. But there's a concern, maybe it's not baked properly. In those days, especially, it was thicker matzahs. But even these days, the halacha still stays. The concern is still there, that maybe it didn't bake properly. So that part where it's folded over, you can't eat. And you're supposed to break off that piece, plus another about 3/4 of an inch. Because if we're concerned that this part didn't bake properly and it became chametz, so it touched the rest of the matzah too. So the part next to it, not the whole matzah, but just right next to it, It's about 3/4 of an inch, some say maybe an inch. It's about that amount. Also potentially became chametz. So that part has to be broken off. And some would say to flush it down the toilet. Some would say there's different opinions. I want to look into it. Some say there might be muktzeh because maybe if it's chametz. I want to look into it. There's so different opinions on it. But ideally, if you can look over the matzahs before Pesach, that's the best thing. You're not obligated because they do it in the matzah bakery. They do look it over. So the real issues they take care of. Sometimes they overlook it. Sometimes it's very minor. So it's a good thing to do. I'm not saying you have to go through all your matzahs, but it's a nice thing to do if you're able to. But if you notice it on Pesach, be aware, just you break off that piece and you don't eat that piece. Question? So we said before that matzah has to be made from something that has potential to become chametz. You cannot make matzah out of rice, millet, corn, all these. You go into the health food store. They have all types of breads, healthy breads. You can't make matzah out of those ingredients. Now, these days it's also prohibited. Those are not Sephardim. All these things are prohibited. Rice, millet, corn, kasha, beans, lentils, sesame seeds. All these ingredients are prohibited on Pesach because they have a similarity to the 5 grains. The Chacham said, if you, let's say, you're allowed to eat rice on Pesach, the person's going to say, oh, I can cook up a pot of rice, I can cook up a pot of barley too. Right? They're similar. It's similar. It's small, tiny little pieces. They have similarity to the 5 grains. Corn, right? Millet, kasha, lentils, they all have a similarity to the 5 grains. If a person was allowed to eat these ingredients, they'll say, what's the difference between wheat, barley, spelt, and these ingredients? Also, it's the same idea. The tiny little seeds, little grains, they look very similar. So Chacham said, we prohibit this all on Pesach. For the Sephardim, it's not prohibited because they never accepted this prohibition. But for everyone else, this is prohibited on Pesach. However, it's not in the same category of chametz, meaning you can have it in your possession, you can have it in your house, and also you're allowed to benefit from it. And what would be examples of benefit? Those days it was more prevalent examples of benefit because they used different types of oils for lighting. So they would use, maybe corn oil or different oils for lighting, so they're allowed to benefit from it. But they have to be careful that the food doesn't get to it. Also, chametz on Pesach, if a drop of chametz falls into food on Pesach, it does not become nullified. You know that? You can have a huge pot of food as large as this building, cooking a huge pot of Pesach food, and a drop of vodka that's chametz falls into it, all the food becomes prohibited. That's with chametz. But with kidneys, if a drop of, let's say, corn oil or whatever, kasha, whatever, falls into Pesach like a food, but if it happened, it becomes nullified. If there's 60 against it, it does become actually it becomes nullified majority. Now, Taneba says all you need is a majority. If there's a majority against it, it becomes nullified. Okay, we'll stop here.
Thank you.
Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
This
I'm just curious.
No, I'm trying to shut it. It's shut it.
Oh, the Zoom?
Yeah.
Is this thing?
Oh. Last night, you remember